271 times in the English Standard Version of the Bible, the word soul is found. It's found in a variety of contexts, but with one overall point of emphasis: that our soul is the most valuable gift that God has given. More than the breath that fills our lungs, more than the blood that our heart pumps, more than the neurons that are firing within our mind to process anything and everything around us and in us, the most valuable possession that we have, you can't touch, you can't buy it, you can't go find it. It is given by God. So can I ask a question? How is your soul this morning? In the little book of 3 John, John the Apostle, John the Elder, writing to a congregation. We don't know who they are. We don't know what's going on in their lives. We don't know what's happening amongst the congregation there. We get a little idea of what perhaps they need, but really there's a lot of mystery surrounding this little letter. But that doesn't stop him from being a shepherd to them, not just in title, but in practice. So as John the Elder comes before his congregation or congregations, he makes a prayer request. And he says this: "Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." Is our soul this morning getting along well? How is your soul? Not your mind, not your body, not your strength, your soul. If everything that makes you you were completely dependent on the condition, the current health and well-being of your soul, how healthy are you this morning? You sounded really good in singing "It Is Well With My Soul." And it's great to hear it, isn't it? I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes just in the middle of the song I stop. So I'd love to hear you. But if you detach your soul for a moment and just put it up here and just stand it right next to you, would you be able to point to it and say, that is a well and healthy soul? I would venture to say that a lot of us are not as healthy and as well as we would like to be, for a variety of reasons. So several years ago, it's not new to anything that we've gone over and anything that we have found under the sun. It's not new, but it was new to me a couple of years ago, where I stumbled across where most of the national and global dictionaries come up with a word of the year. They like to look back over the events and the times and the people and so forth and so on, and take a word and assign it as a description for that calendar year. Even preached a sermon on it a couple of years ago, where the Oxford Dictionary, their word for that year in 2018 was post-truth, which was just amazing in of itself. But it's amazing almost the accuracy that these individuals or these councils or committees, how they're able to really nail down it with one word that calendar year. 365 days worth of people and events and times and circumstances, and they're able to nail it down. And what happened is they figured out, as all the companies do, to get more traffic, we're all going to be unique in our own word of the year. So we're not going to share the word of the year. So Webster's Dictionary has their word of the year. Oxford Dictionary has their word of the year. How many of you have heard of HarperCollins or Collins out of UK, out of the United Kingdom? Their word of the year for 2022 was permacrisis. That's how they described it. But I want you to look at the definition. I'm going to read it, but I want you to read it for a moment. This word actually could describe the last 3 years. And for some of us, it could describe our soul right now. That a permacrisis is, quote, an extended period of instability and insecurity, especially one resulting from a series of catastrophic events. We move from one crisis to another. And if you think of just this year, if you think of just what's going on within a month and a half, maybe not even a month and a half, 2 months if you want to go that far, and just kind of cast a wide net. Think of all the external crises that we face, whether it's national or whether it's global. Think of all the things that we're facing. Think of all the things that are right there in front of us, and we move from one to another. How about the earthquake in Turkey that took the lives of thousands upon thousands of individuals? And we shake our head in disbelief because we can't imagine just the tragedy that is, and all the things that it's going to take just to try to overcome that crisis. How about inflation? And it's constantly in front of us, and we're feeling it, and we have been feeling it for quite some time. How about a balloon that floats from one country on one side of the world to another country on another side? How about a train derailment that's carrying containers upon containers of toxic chemicals? And then you realize, as we kind of talked about this morning in our class, that if you turn the mirror and we were to look into our soul is dealing with a permacrisis. And we got a lot more in common with that train than what we realize. You know that some of us are carrying around the toxic habit of our world around us. You know what that habit is? We just go. We're always in a hurry. We go and 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 we go. One thing is done, we move on to the next. One thing is done, we move on to the next. That thing gets done, we move on to the next, and we just keep going. We're in a constant state of hurry. Some of us are dealing with the toxicity, worry, and anxiousness, fear. Others of us are just dealing with things that maybe we haven't shared with anyone. But no matter what's going on, if the veil could be pulled back, our soul is not well, and we'll venture to say that for some of us, our soul is in a toxic state. If this prayer request were to ever come true, there would have to be a lot that changes from the inside out, wouldn't it? And we deal with so many things that are happening. So many things that are going on. And what's amazing about all of this is that I am actually not saying anything new to us. You probably recognize, like I do for my own self, the current state of your soul. You know it very well this morning. You know what's going on. You know the toxicity that you're dealing with. You know the cloud that's overhanging you. You know the lifestyle you have adopted. And can I say that one of the biggest myths of Satan in the last couple of years for us is that we would say, well, I'm just in a season, and we'd describe whatever it is. That's just a season. Seasons are supposed to end, aren't they? And give way to another. And yet for a lot of us, we're not in a season anymore. We're in a lifestyle. And it's unhealthy. And our soul is not well. So we have a lot in common with the proverb writer at the end of the whole book, where he just simply acknowledges out loud, I am weary. I am weary and I am worn out. I'm weary. That's my soul. It's not my mind. It's not my emotions. It's not my body. It's my soul. But what's amazing about all of this is in our recognition of this, and somebody mentioned this in class, so she was spot on with this point in class, and she's spot on, so I'm going to use this in her own terms and what she said this morning in class. We look to ourselves to solve the unhealthiness of our soul. You notice that? The proverb writer tells us not to lean on our own understanding, but when it comes to the current state of our soul, we turn to our own understanding. I know the answer for the current state of my soul. I know the answer to the unhealthy lifestyle that I have. I know the answer of the current practices and habits that I've undertaken. I know the answer. I can come up with the solution. And so I lean on my own understanding. And the thing is all of the things that we would turn to, they actually work for a little bit. So I want you to just rewind with me for a moment. Just go back to yesterday. It was a beautiful day, wasn't it? Not a cloud in the sky, at least in our neck of the woods. Able to get outside and enjoy a lot. But I want you to go further with me. You got a chair. You and your family are finally walking to your place. And the sand under your feet is warm. And the waves are just crashing. Got a little bit of a whisper of a seagull flying overhead. And it's just like yesterday, not a cloud in the sky. We could just finally get away. Just finally get away. Maybe that's not it. Maybe you finally, at the end of the long day, you just pick up the remote, you put your feet up, and you finally have that TV in front of you with your streaming service, and you're able to finally watch that show that you've been meaning to watch. So you turn it on. And before you know it, 3 or 4 hours has passed. Maybe that's not it. Maybe it's that tablet some of you are holding in your hand, or the phone that you could have in your pocket. And I'll just scroll a little bit. I'll see what else is going on in other people's lives. Oh, look, there may be a little video on YouTube. I'll watch it. And if you're like me, you go down the rabbit hole. Maybe that's not it at all. Maybe it's something else. But in the end, even though it works, there's something that we know about all of those things. And again, if that's not your answer, maybe it's something else. But in the end, we all know something about that. And that even though they work temporarily. Because you have to leave the sand and the waves and the seagull. And you have to leave the couch or the recliner. And you got to leave and put the phone down. And what's amazing about all of our answers is that we look to the created for only what the Creator can give us when it comes to our soul. I don't mean to cast a net and to say that those are bad. Nothing created is bad. Everything that the Lord created, even us, and what we are able to create is good. The issue isn't that at all. The issue is that we turn to those things and we turn to ourselves first. And over and over and over, we are told throughout the Scripture, we are instructed, we are informed through example and through command and through letters and through narratives and so many other things. Stop turning to those. Because if you do, you're going to find the futility of it all. So Israel tried to do that in the prophet Jeremiah's day, and God, very early on in this very long book that is diagnosing the problems of Israel's lifestyle and her mindset, He essentially sends His prophet, and through His prophet, He says, all of you, you know what you need. But the way that you're trying to take care of it is the equivalent of having a broken jar. A broken cistern is how it's worded. So Charlie and I were talking about this earlier this week, and we needed a little bit more of a contemporary answer to this. So we don't have jars, we have pitchers. But even then, it's not as commonplace as it was for ancient Israel. So the best thing we come up with, both of us, put our minds together. And if you can't tell what is in this picture, this is a strainer. Some of us call it a colander. Others of us call it a fruit basket, or it's just going to hold whatever we got on the counter. Here's the thing. Everybody here knows what we need. We need the water that is pouring. See the water? We need it. But all of our efforts, even if it's turning to those things that have worked, at their best are the equivalent of pouring water into a strainer. That's why when we come back, we're still empty. That's why the temporary renewal or the recharging or even the transformation that it promised never really lasts as long as we hoped it would. Because at their best, they are the equivalent to a strainer. We still need the water, but we're going about it all the wrong way. So I look to those things, and you look to those things too. And my family does, and your family does. The point of the whole series is going to be start looking to the Lord first for all that you need. And stop looking to yourself and to the things around you for the things that you need. Stop doing that. Amen. Not in the sense to stop it forever, but stop looking to them first. Stop looking to them first. So just a couple of reminders as we bring this to a close. One, why do we turn to the Lord? It's because He gave you your soul. As much as we may not like it, and we've not liked this ever since we were little, when our parents would tell us that I know what's best for you, still the same is true because the Lord knows what's best for all of us here this morning. He created the soul, He gave the soul, He sustains the soul, and He saves the soul. And it's all from Him. This is why we turn to Him first. Despite our own experience and despite all the other things that we would say that I know what's good for me and I know what's best for me, and maybe you do to a certain extent, but we don't know everything. He does. The Lord gave you your soul. It only makes sense to turn to the one who knows what is best for your soul. So years later, when David writes a psalm, not his most famous and not his most well known, but one that describes an individual who truly grasps with his heart who the Lord is and what He's given, says this: my soul thirsts for God, for the living God. He recognized just what you recognize this morning, what I recognize, how thirsty we are, how hungry we are, how we need to be satisfied with something that is beyond ourselves. And so this sister said this morning to recognize the battle that exists between the flesh and the spirit is to recognize, I know I'm thirsty, and I know I'm hungry, and I know what I need in terms of satisfaction. But the flesh tells me that I'm the solution to my own problem. And the Spirit, through the Word of God, says, God is the answer. God is the source. Because He gave it to you so long ago. That the ability to satisfy thirst, and the ability to satisfy hunger, and the ability to satisfy rest, and the ability to satisfy renewal, and the ability to satisfy transformation and recharging and so forth and so on, The ability lies within God and not within us. So when David goes through all the things that he encounters that are written about in Samuel and the Kings and the Chronicles, when he needs God, when things are overwhelming him, whether it's a giant who calls him out, or it's a king who makes him public enemy number one, or it's his own doing, David, when things get back on track, he recognizes, I am thirsty, but it is the Lord who can satisfy that. So you fast forward from David, and another king comes onto the scene. He's about a year within his public ministry. He's proclaiming the gospel, that God's rule is here. And so he makes his first public invitation. And it starts like this. Come to me. In a society that says go to yourself, in a society that says get away, in a culture that says look inward, the voice of the king whispers powerfully but softly, come to me. How many of you have the beach calling your name? Some of us know it's not. I don't like the sand. Jesus is calling everyone's name this morning. Come to me. Not to yourself. Not to a man-made solution. Not even to the created, though it's good. Come to me. And you know the rest of the invitation. Because I am meek. I am lowly. I am humble. Learn. And you will find rest. And tonight we're going to explore, what does he mean by meek and lowly? But one answer is that he says in John chapter 10 twice, in just a few short verses, I am the good shepherd. So I leave us with two questions as we close this out. No doubt that the Bible you hold in your hand, whether it's electronic or whether it's a hard copy, the majority of us, if not all of us, believe that it is truly the Word of God from Himself. I want to ask you if you believe in Him. So I'm going to assume that you're here because you do. Do we believe Him? There's a world of difference in believing in Him and believing Him. And for some of us, that's the bridge that needs to be crossed in order to find wellness for our soul. But others of us who would say, yes, I do believe. Absolutely I believe. Then, will we act upon the invitation? Not the one this morning. This one. Will we lay down the pride of being our own answer to our own unhealthiness? Will we lay down our own wisdom and knowledge that's based on experience and instead, in humility, come to the one who gave us the soul and who is the only one in heaven and on earth that can make our soul well? Only Jesus can save our soul for eternity. But in this life, we must partner with Him in order to combat the soul and the infirmity that would go against it. This morning, it is about one of two questions. Do you believe Him? And will you come to Him? That's the invitation. That's what's extended. And only one can give us rest for our soul. If you have a need, why don't you come as we stand and sing?